Everybody's showing up. Good job. Hello, Aaron. You're the
How are you
first one on
doing?
my screen. Okay. Welcome, welcome. Robin, you were a little early.
Yeah.
That's okay. I got this message like it was before this meeting started. It was like, Robin's joined. And I'm like, wait, I can't get there yet. I can't let you. That's fine. As long as y'all know, I gotta wait till the other meeting ends before I can start this one.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just making sure my computer was on and everything was working.
Very good. Very good. I hope y'all had a good holiday weekend. Everything good?
Yes, it
Good,
was a good
good.
weekend.
How was yours?
Mine was wonderful. Let's see, here's Joseph. Let me get everybody admitted. Give them maybe a 1 extra minute to get joined. And then I'm going to show y'all something that you may not expect.
Uh-oh.
Because, I like the special. Okay, that's probably long enough. Okay, let me share my screen. And, okay. So y'all expected this. This is what you don't expect. I'm going to give you access to the application worksheet. Now, this application worksheet is one that I put together with, I put it together. I gave it to Aaron Wittenberger, who is the leader of one of the other chapters. And the reason that I didn't want to give it to you quite this early is because you're not ready to fill it all out yet, but you are ready to put some of your information on here. So the first page is just instruction. The second page is professional development. We've got drop downs in a lot of these fields so that you can just select something, because whenever you actually take this to the IIBA website to turn in your application, you're going to have drop downs. You need to be able to know which one it is. It's just easier to be able to have the decision made now. For your description, 3 sentences is probably max. It doesn't give you a whole lot of characters. So if you want to group together your professional development, for instance, I lead this every week, right? They don't want to know what I do every single week. They want to know that I do it every week. So I said we had the IIBA Tampa Bay chapter meetings every week for 32 weeks. I get 32 hours here. And you can just put your description here. They do want to know the website. If there is a person that you can put on here, put that on here. Contact email. If you have it, great. If you don't have it, that's fine. They're not going to penalize you. Don't say that you can't get credit for something just because you don't have an email. Same thing for phone. The start date and end date are the dates that the event happened. So if you attended a webinar, if you took a class, if you did a self-paced study on Udemy, whatever it is, you go ahead and put your start and end date and then your total hours. Uh, and then your knowledge area domain, there's room for all 4 of them here. And I'm sorry, all 6 of them here. And I put drop downs in here so you can just pick the ones you have. It's easier if you do knowledge area 1 across, knowledge area 2 across. I'll change that before I send it out by email. Because what you want to do at the end is I want to know how many knowledge area ones, that I was involved in and things like that. And then resources you use to prepare, again, it gives a drop down for that. This is not, you don't have to be fancy. You do have to be honest. So just put your information in. I encourage you to go back through your Outlook calendar, your Google calendar, whatever you use to track your time, because you're going to have things that you had forgotten about. So get them in here. You need 35 hours total. This class is going to give you a majority of that. But if you want to put a few more things on there, it's not a bad idea. Okay? All right. I'm going to go on to the work history. The reason that I don't normally send this out until we get through chapter 7 is because y'all are learning what's in each knowledge area, and this is aligned to knowledge area. So let's say your current job, your organization name and website, work description, again, 3 sentences. If it is like a not a business analysis job, You need to figure out what kind of words you can use to make it sound like it is business analysis. For instance, if you're doing project management, you know you're doing business analysis, but you're thinking in project management terms. It's important that you don't present it as project management. You talk about the business analysis portion. You elicited requirements. You identified your stakeholders. You did stakeholder management. Those things, you understand what I mean? That have in the past, and I don't know if they're doing it now, but in the past they've actually denied you to be able to use experience that look like project management. You know, I don't know why. That's just the way that they have done it. If you are a student, if you're a salesperson, if you're a teacher, if you are running your own business, whatever it is, you can set it up as business analysis in our terms. If you need help, reach out. I'm happy to help you. It is important that you try to put this information, your contact, first name, last name, email, and phone number, because for about 20% of your applications, they will actually audit. They'll audit everything. They will check with every employer. Did they really work here from this date to this date? Things like that. You'll notice in here, they don't have your job title. They don't really care. For work description for this, I've done things like the project was decommissioning a mainframe. My job was to work with regulatory and compliance to identify their needs of what was currently on the mainframe and elicit the requirements and get the reports rewritten and confirm that they were able to get the reports just correctly created outside of the mainframe, and then perform all the testing. You know, that's business analysis, but they want to kind of know what the project was. Let me just put in a couple of things here. Let's say my start date was 1/1/99. It's going to convert it to dates. My end date was 2/15/2024. This does a calculation for total days. It just subtracts one from the other. Then it pulls out the weekends. And I did this on purpose so you could see the math. And then it multiplies this number of days by 8 hours, assuming you work 8 hours a day. If you work 4 hours a day, go up here and change the formula to 4 hours. But most of us typically do 8 hours a day. And then, so we have 52,000 hours here that we need to allocate between the different knowledge areas. So I realize this here. Let me move the screen up here. Hide it. Let's see if I can just move it up. I don't remember how to do this. It's been a while. Okay, so we have 52,000 hours. Let's say I'm going to say half of my time was doing elicitation. So I'm going to put 50% there. It's automatically going to give you numbers. I don't want to have to do the math, but I know most of my time is gathering requirements. And then a good part of my time is going to be requirements lifecycle management. So let's do 25% there. And then down here in requirements analysis, RAD, I did 25%. Y'all aren't going to have this exactly, but you can see it's doing the math for you. Okay. And then down at the bottom, it adds up the percentages and it adds up the other numbers to tell you. It looks like I'm 1 hour off. It should be 0. So even with percentages, it's doing the numbers wrong a little bit. So I'm going to turn this into 13,108. Now my hours in the different knowledge areas align to my total number of hours at the top. So now you know how to do it. The numbers, the hours for this job. It also, one of the things you have to do is you have to have a certain number. You have 900 hours in 4 different knowledge areas. And so it's going to add it across the knowledge areas here. Scroll over here. I've got 26,000 there. I've got 13,000 there. I've got 13,000 there. I'm well on my way of getting 900 hours in 4 different knowledge areas. So I never want you to be dishonest, but be prudent in where you put your hours to be sure you get your minimum number of hours in the different knowledge areas for your work experience. Do I have any questions? Everybody good?
I have one. If we leave a contact person, can I do it for someone from Europe, or it should be US based one?
It can be anywhere you want.
Anywhere. Okay.
They do not, well, okay, my opinion is you should not be penalized if the person that can attest to your experience is not convenient to them. So
Okay.
just put the information in. There are people that I worked with that I have no clue what their phone number was. I never got their phone number. We did everything by email, right? I did email. Some of them I gave LinkedIn contact. You know, here's their profile. You can go talk to them, right? Do the best you can is what it comes down to.
Okay.
Okay. There was one that I did not want to put my boss on there because my boss was not a kind person and I did not think that they would be honest. I put one of my coworkers. As long as they can attest to your experience, that's cool. All right. Okay. I'll be
Do
sending
you,
this out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
a question. So
Yeah.
do you want it by certain jobs that we've done or by our, 'cause see, like I've been a business analyst for, 7, 8 years or whatever so far in this role. So, in my job I currently in. So do you want me to list out like all the different things that I've done or, I mean, just put in the time frame?
So you're asking by employer or are you saying can I group all these jobs together? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, yeah.
Okay.
Or do you want
The
to, or do they
challenge
want
with
to have
that is you
separate?
need a person that they can contact that can say, yes, you worked at this place. If you have a person that you worked with at all those places that can say, yes, she worked at this place with me here, and then we moved to this place here between this date and this date. If you have that, there's no problem.
Okay,
Typically, I would say one employer per row. I'm sorry, per column. And that
okay,
just makes it easy. I have had people that were like, I've got to get out my timesheet and figure out exactly how many hours. It's like, no, they do not care that much. Do not put that much work into it. Just
okay.
get it on there, be as honest as you can without spending a whole lot of extra time. Now, as I said, each of these jobs are aligned to the knowledge area. We've gone through knowledge areas 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're working on knowledge areas 5, 6, and 7 right now. You might not be ready to figure out what percentage of your time you worked in those jobs yet. That's okay. You don't have to turn this in until you get ready to apply to take your test. Let's talk about applying to take your test. When you do that, you'll go on the IIBA website. If you're a member, you're going to get a discount that's greater than your membership fee. So I encourage you to consider being a member. Secondly, when you apply to take your test, you're going to go into certifications. Let me just show you instead of telling you, waving my hands around like you can see what I'm doing. Let's do IIBA. So main page, you're going to go into certification. I think it's certifications here. Find the right certification, pick the one that you want. Am I in the wrong place? There's just too many places on here. Okay, let's go back to certification. Let's try 4 steps. Browse certifications. This is where I was just now. Okay.
I think under where you are, oh, it had options.
Tell me, where?
Go back to where you were. Was it IIBA certifications? I don't know what you clicked on first.
Okay.
Yeah, and then go down a little bit
Oh,
a little
look.
bit more. Yeah, or under
There you
that,
go.
yeah.
Okay. There we go. Earn your CBAP certification today. I want to start now. You're going to go to the store, accept your cookies. It wants you to pay the fee first. You pay your fee, add it to the order. I'm sorry, you indicate this, add it to the order, pay your fee, and then you're going to go into the application. The application, I can't get to it unless I pay for it, so I'm not going to show it to you. But the application is almost exactly what I have on the spreadsheet. You copy and paste. It makes it a whole lot easier. Additionally, whenever you do that, you have 7 days from the time you begin a section, like a job or a class, until they lock it down. So it's really easier if you have everything ready on your spreadsheet and then go in and do it all at once. Then you submit your application. Immediately upon submitting the application, your the two references that you have to provide, they'll receive an email. Now, your two references need to be people that you've known for at least 6 months. They need to be either a CBAP or they need to be somebody that you have had managing you that will respond, that they understand. When they receive the email, it's going to say, we received an application for the CBAP from this person. They said that they have this experience. Do you concur? Will you validate that? They have about a week to respond. So you need to pick somebody who will be responsive, that will understand what the email is saying, because I've had bosses, people I reported to, they did not understand the language of business analysis. And the email is kind of in our language. So either be sitting there with them and explain to them whatever they need to understand so you can shepherd them through that, or pick somebody that understands what the email is going to say. But you need to pick two people. I've had people that are like, I picked two people and one of them isn't responding and I don't know what to do and I can't contact him. You might have to go back to the IIBA and say, can I replace that one with somebody else? Don't do that to yourself. Set it up ahead of time to be somebody that you can count on, that understands what's going on. Okay, once they respond, whether they audit you or not, you're going to get an email at some point that says your application has been accepted. So be watching your email. From that date, you have 1 year to take your test. So I encourage you, not long after we finish this course, while you still have all this knowledge in your head, schedule it and just, spend a weekend doing your final prep and plan on taking it then. I particularly like to take tests like this at the beginning of Thanksgiving week. And that way, if I don't pass because of nerves or whatever, I can spend Thanksgiving week off and take it at the end of the week or take it on the following Monday. But that way it works and you've got your backup. I do not encourage you to say, I didn't pass it, I'm going to just put it on the back burner for a while. It is almost impossible to come back to, because you let the, oh no, what if, and I'm going to be embarrassed and all that stuff build up. Don't do that to yourself. Just have your plan. I'll set it for a week from now. You get a discount on rescheduling. If you have to take it a second time, it's cheaper just than taking it the first time. Okay, what questions do I have about the application I'm going to send to you? Realizing you don't have to complete it now. You don't even have to start it now. But some of you, I know, are overachievers, and you're going to want to start putting in something. So you get your hands around it. What questions do I have?
Did you say before that they have an in-person option for this test and it's not just online?
Yes, ma'am. There is an in-person option. So let me go through that. This is a proctored test, which means you're going to be monitored all the time you're taking it. So you can take it at home in your own place, or you can take it in one of the testing centers. In your own place has rules that I didn't want to follow. For instance, you can't have anything on the walls. Look at my walls. I didn't want to take all that off. You also have to take your camera. I know. You have to take your camera and show them that there's no books in the room. There's nothing under the desk. I've had people say that they had a framed picture and they made them go touch it to prove that it was a picture and not a smart screen.
Oh boy.
They make you examine your glasses to be sure that they're not smart glasses, that have people. You got to show them your ears. I would much rather do all that in person and just they do the wand. They make you bring your sleeves up and your pants legs up, and I had to lift my hair up. They want to be sure that you're not doing anything dishonest. Also, if I'm-
Is there a way to find out where you can do it before you do the
yes,
application?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, Bob, do you remember the name of the place? Let me just do this.
What?
Testing
Well,
Center.
I took my CBAP in DC. I took 2 or 3 different certification exams there. So that was one thing way easier. I did one here sitting at this desk, and it was a real pain in the tuchus. I wanted
You have a
to
lot
know
of books.
ever doing that again.
So Prometric?
Let's see.
Probably.
You
The
think-
IIBA should have a list of testing locations on their website someplace.
They should. Prometric just doesn't sound quite right to me. I'll find out what it's called. But basically, they have these testing sites. They're usually in strip malls that you go into.
Unfortunately, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it's going to be an hour drive, either north or south, and I'm just trying to plan for that.
Right. I did not want to have to empty all the books out. I've had people say that they took their test. They literally had to take their test either in a bathroom or a hallway so that they could fulfill the requirements of no information around them. My additional reason is this. Something happens with computers and me. Technology and me, I don't know. I've got electromagnetics. I don't know. I have weirdness with my computers. I have had people say that when they were trying to sign in, their firewall would get blocked. Their firewall would block the testing, or they couldn't get something was wrong. If I go to their center, they have to manage that, So that's why I chose to go there. I did not want to have to manage how to test. I'm going to try one more time. I think it was called PSI testing. I think this is the service that we use in the United States. Let me search for. Let me search for a location. Well, you're not making it easy. PSI, Springfield, Missouri. It could be it. Okay, anyway, it's a testing chain that's all that they do.
On the website, on the IIBA website, it says PSI Test Center for
Okay,
CCBA and ECBA.
okay, that's what you got. All right, so I will be sending out this document to y'all by email. I'll take out my numbers here. I don't want to take out my formulas. I'll take out my dates here and my percentage here. And realize that you have the option of, I put that in there, didn't I? You have the option of working on this a little bit now and a little bit later, if you want to, okay? If you want me to go over what you think is your final, or if you have any questions between now and the time you actually send it in, I'm happy to, let's get online and do it together, okay? All right, let's get to the test questions. Can anybody tell me which knowledge area we're on? Oh, I hope you can tell me.
Strategy analysis.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I could hear some of you going, okay, strategy analysis is the knowledge area that we're on. Can you tell me what's unique about strategy analysis as far as the number of tasks that are in it?
The number of tasks that are in
How
it.
many tasks are in the knowledge area strategy analysis? Anybody?
There's quite
Okay.
a few.
This one is unique because it has only 4 tasks.
Only 4?
Only 4. There are 4 critical tasks, but there's only 4. It's the only knowledge area with 4 tasks. Okay, first question. Sam's recommendation was unanimously approved by the steering team. What really solid decision makers were, I'm sorry, I'm starting over. Sam's recommendation was unanimously approved by the steering team. What really sold decision makers were the forecasted benefits of the future state he modeled with incredible detail. How will Sam utilize that forecasted potential value in the business analysis process? So, what has Sam done here talking about the forecasted state? Is he in the task define future state, or is he in the task define change strategy?
I
The
wanna
key
say
to this
future.
is that he is running it by the steering team, which tells
Okay.
me that he is in define change strategy, and he is in the change strategy task, change strategy element, which is where you create your business case. Whenever you say, this is our plan, this is what we want to move forward with. Okay. Sam will define metrics and key performance indicators from which to measure solution performance once the future state is implemented. Sam will ensure that all requirements and designs support the delivery of forecasted benefits. Sam will ensure that requirements and designs meet quality standards and are usable for the purpose they serve. Sam assessed and reported the potential value in order to drive consensus among decision makers. Since consensus was reached, the primary purpose of the forecasted benefits has been fulfilled. Seems a little dishonest to me. What do you think?
Not D.
Yep. We do not provide predictions or evaluations just to get people to make decisions and then drop them. That's not our integrity. What else can we eliminate? Okay, I've got 1 vote for C. Sam will ensure that requirements and designs meet quality standards and are usable for the purpose they serve. Anybody else? So let's walk through this process.
Yeah, that's kind of hard.
Sam
Either B or
Sam
C.
Sam has said we are going to, our goal is to do this, and he's modeled the future state with incredible detail. Has forecasted potential value. So he's got numbers here, right?
Mhm.
So to take these numbers and ignore them, which is what D is doing, is not honorable.
No.
If the requirements and designs meet quality standards, that has nothing to do with the numbers, really, right?
Mhm.
This is really the only place that is talking about
A.
numbers, unless we're talking about requirements and designs
Forecasted.
support the delivery of forecasted benefits. But a better way to say it would be that we're going to be able to deliver the forecasted benefits, which would be the metrics and key performance indicators.
The
Does that
KPIs.
reasoning
Yeah.
sound right?
Yes.
Sure. A.
Okay. Let's try A. I could be wrong too, guys. Ooh, I was.
Is B.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay. So, all
Okay.
requirements and designs support the delivery of forecasted benefits. Forecasted benefits is another way of saying needed value. I'd forgotten that. The answer describes the task of validate requirements, which is one of the tasks that uses the future state description and output to define future state task. Which is the scenario described. We're in 6.2, which is define future state. We're not in change strategy yet. So
Right.
he defined the future state and modeled it here. He didn't talk about how we're going to get to the future state, which is where I thought we were at. So solution performance does not necessarily equate to business value. A high-performing solution may not deliver the value that was forecasted. Okay, if you were confused by that And I'm sorry if I led you down a merry path there. 6.2.1, that figure is where the answer to this is. Okay. Let's move on. Oh, these are lovely because you can never see the whole diagram on one page, but we'll do the best we can. You're a BA working in a large retailer and you're reviewing the documentation for order processing system to understand the current state before working on an enhancement. The enhancement will add predictive inventory replenishment capability, this feature right here. An increasing problem at your company is that popular products are frequently out of stock. An important part of the existing documentation is the diagram below. So this is existing documentation. Order processing system, it's a context diagram. Has anybody looked at what a context diagram is?
Kind of, yeah.
Context diagram is a high-level diagram that shows entities and how they're connected. It doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but it's really good at the very beginning of a project. So let's start with order processing system is in the middle. The customer relates to the order processing system through an order catalog request. The order processing system relates to the customer by order confirmation. So there's a cycle here. Order processing system to accounting provides accounting order information. Accounting provides the system invoice confirmation. The warehouse receives a catalog request from the order processing system and then provides shipping confirmation back to the order processing system. And then inventory management system receives an inventory request from the order processing system and provides a product availability to the order processing system. Any questions on what we've seen? Realizing we haven't seen the question yet. Okay,
Right.
we can come back to this. I'm going to scroll down. First question of 3. Which techniques besides document analysis would you use to help you understand the context and need for the enhancement? So we know document analysis. We're looking at a document here. What other techniques would you use? Let's go back. We are in which task? Let's be sure we know what task we're in. We're reviewing the documentation for this to understand the current state. So we're in current state analysis, right?
Yep.
Okay, for current state analysis, we've got document analysis. If you remember the techniques that we're going to use, because it's asking for a technique, would it be a data flow diagram, item tracking, risk analysis, a business model canvas, decision analysis, and SWOT analysis, data mining, root cause analysis, benchmarking, or would it be workshops, scope modeling, and balanced scorecard? Are any of these things we wouldn't use? Can we eliminate any?
Is item tracking actually a technique? I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
It is.
It is
It
in
is.
current state.
Mm.
It is. Would we use benchmarking to understand the context and need for enhancement? Benchmark is whenever you go and look at how other companies are doing things.
Right.
Yes.
I would think so,
Yeah, because it could help make decisions about your future
Yeah.
state. So you
yeah.
could.
But does it, when you're comparing against other companies, is it really looking at what they're doing or comparing metrics against other companies for benchmarking?
Well, you start with what is the other company doing and what are the results that you know of from them.
Okay.
So root cause analysis,
Yeah, that would.
would it help you understand the need in the context? And data mining
Yes.
to get more information?
Yeah.
Is this the best answer, do you think, according to the BABOK for this task?
Is data mining the same thing as data modeling?
No.
Mm.
Because I don't see
Data mining is
mining.
is going after new data. Data modeling is putting data into a picture that people can understand, like a process
Hmm.
map. So you want to test this one?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, let's test it. And it is correct. All of these techniques would help you understand the current state and the context and the need for enhancement. All are listed as the technique to help analyze the current state.
Let
Okay.
me make a comment here, and that
Yes.
is that I hate this question. You will never find a question on the on the actual exam that's this touchy or fiddly. And the reason I say that is because the techniques applicable to this section listed on page 108 and 9 is almost all of them. And
Yeah.
all the 3 incorrect choices, 2 out of the 3 are correct. And the idea that you should know the techniques so well you would get this question right from brute memory, it's ridiculous. That I think the actual exam would not be this fiddly. I mean, it's fine for practice to make you look at the list, but this is just bonkers.
So we talked
Thank you for
before.
saying that, because that's exactly what I was doing. I'm like, there's 2 out of 3 in all of them.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you
Just
can
enough to screw
memorize
you
all
up.
of them, if you're capable of doing that, it's a benefit to you, but it's not necessary. So those of you who are challenged with memorizing all, what is it, 30 of them or something like that, what is most beneficial to you in this case is say, I understand the purpose of this task. I understand who's involved in it. I understand the inputs and outputs and elements. And to do those things, to get those things done, I understand how these techniques could be used. And doing that's going to attach the techniques to the concept for you much more effectively.
Thea, can you click on B, please?
I'm happy to, and welcome. B, 2 of these techniques would help, but 1 of them will not. The Babok describes decision analysis as being used to compare different future state options and understanding which is the best choice.
I totally disagree with that also. So I hate even more about the Babok and this question. And
All right.
don't get me wrong, the Babok's awesome, but it isn't perfect.
It has some challenges, but understanding the concepts gives you
Right.
tools in your toolbox to consider, maybe I should do this. Maybe I need to be aware of this. Okay, next
Also,
question.
if we have time before we're done here, I'd like 3 minutes. Give you context for what this chapter is about.
Okay,
So,
let's finish this question and then I'll let you do that. So we can do it between this question and the next. Question 2 of 3 on this scenario. You have studied the diagram and have an idea which flow starts in order. Which flow in the diagram is most likely to start the process? This is a context diagram. It doesn't have a start anywhere. A swim lane diagram would be needed to establish the starting point for an order. Any of the flows could potentially start the process since a DFD, data flow diagram, is not sequentially oriented document. You would need an order and catalog request. That would be the thing to start, right?
Up
Order
on top.
request catalog. There it
Mhm.
is. That one. Or it would be order information would start. So which of these answers is best according to the Babok?
I want to say C,
Yeah, same.
because without that, you don't have anything else.
sure hope it's C.
Okay. Anybody have a different idea? Okay, we're going to test C. Let's see where we get. It is true a data flow diagram is not sequentially oriented. More information is needed if the trigger for an order needs to be established. This is one of those, if you didn't read the technique about data flow diagrams, you're not going to get it. Because it looks like, I mean, logically, we know what starts an order, right? But according to the diagram, you can't, it doesn't tell you because it's a data flow diagram. Yes, Bob.
Hang on, where does it say that is a data flow diagram? Because you said that was a context diagram.
It is. Let's look at data flow diagram, the 13th.
No, I get
technique.
that.
I
but-
think context diagram is listed as one of the types of data flow diagrams.
All right,
Tell me if I'm not right.
you may be right.
It would be nice to be right occasionally.
No, you may be. That's bizarre.
Okay.
I mean, you can look at that and see, thinking about what goes on in the real world and say, a customer starts that. And here's the other thing, it doesn't talk about, maintaining shelf quantities, getting stuff from other suppliers and everything else. So you can add infinite amounts of things to these.
Right.
So-
Well, this is the order processing system. So we're not going to have everything on this, but according to this, there's a flow that's missing from this diagram. Would it be reduce inventory, credit card details, new customer information, or shipping instructions?
Well, technically,
So-
they're all missing.
They're all missing, but one of them should be here, and it's not here. So would we have reduced inventory in this? Like that would be at the warehouse?
You should, and that's probably why they're having issues, but
Okay. How about credit card details? Should we have credit card details whenever the customer is ordering, or is that part of the order processing system?
that's, I would assume it's part of the order processing system,
Okay. How
which would
about new
also include, new customer information.
and shipping instructions? We've got shipping confirmation.
Yeah.
So we can only pick one of these answers. Which one do you think we should pick?
I like D the most,
The
Why do
shipping
you
only
like D the
because then
most?
what? Because after shipping confirmation, then what? What comes after that? Or maybe it's not part of the order processing system.
Okay.
Can you scroll
I
down?
I feel like I would have.
What did you say,
I
Sandy?
didn't catch that, Danny.
Sorry, can you scroll down a little in the diagram?
Yes.
Inventory management system.
So this is where the reduce inventory probably would go, right?
Right.
If it should be on this document. This document needs to be all around order processing system.
Could you scroll up to customer? Maybe credit card details.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because maybe you would need that to start everything.
Okay. Let's
The
test.
line would go from the inventory to the warehouse for the reduced inventory.
You think reduce inventory should be it?
I do.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
also choose
That is the
reduce.
only thing that matters. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
let's test it and we will learn what the answer is. So reduce inventory is a function of the inventory system, not of the order processing system. The inventory management system would take care of that. That would be down here. Shipping instructions is the correct answer because this flow can be assumed since there is a shipping confirmation flow, but no flow to provide the instructions. So that's going to be right here. Catalog request goes to the warehouse, but it doesn't say we're going to send the information the shipping instructions.
Good
So,
job, Michelle.
One question in case is saying, don't look at it and try to figure out what's going on. And this one says, look at everything and try to figure out
Figure
what's
out what's wrong.
If they have a reduce inventory function, why do they have a problem of running out of inventory or not knowing when to reorder?
Right.
They got somebody who's sleeping on the job. I don't think I don't know.
Maybe because the shipping instructions, they don't know where it's going.
I would think that part of
the,
that customer information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're losing
Yeah,
it.
that would
Everything is
be.
shipping. Okay, before we start the next question, Bob, you had something to tell us.
yeah, let me have this screen for
You can have it.
if I may. Um,
So you're going to give us context for this chapter?
yeah,
Okay.
all
I'm
right, can
interested to
you
see what
see
you have.
that?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the way I think about doing an engagement to solve a problem. It's my framework. I've been working on it for about 7 years now, I guess. And it basically says define the problem and then figure out what's going on now. So that's your current state. Figure out the requirements, that's an abstract form of the future state. Do a design that's a concrete form of the future state. And then BAs really don't work too much with the actual implementation, although I think they should in test. And that's where you actually build it. And then when you're assessing risks, you're always doing that kind of upfront in looking at what's going to go on with the entire effort. What you should and should not include or think about when identifying the current state. By the way, can you all see my cursor?
Yes.
All right, good. And then requirements, there's going to be some risk analysis then in the design, obviously. And then when you go from the current state to the future state, you have to figure out the process of actually doing the implementation and how you're going to attack that as a strategy. So that's the way I think about things. If I would do a diagram, oh, by the way, let me get over here. There's a lot going on, so that's the as is. We talk about data and where to get it. There are many kinds of data. I could talk about that until I turn 4 shades of short truths. Here's the abstract to be state. The detailed to be state is the design. And there's also in here assumptions, capabilities, limitations, risks and impacts. That all comes in upfront. You have project planning and project management as a wrapper around the whole thing. So you've got plenty to open and then you close it. You do acceptance. There's a lot in here. And if you look at all those steps, if you're doing waterfall, you kind of march through them in order. If you're doing some kind of agile, you put things into the BABA or into the backlog. Sorry, English is a wonderful language. I wish I could speak it. You do everything up to requirements to put items in the backlog, and then you pull them out and work them off by doing a design implement test. Now you can do hybrid things where you have an idea what the whole architecture is going to be like, but you might do the implementation in kind of agile piecemeal way where you're negotiating your way through it. There's a couple other things you have to think about. And one is if you're modifying an initial a system that already exists, you do the conceptual model to find out the current state. So that is discovery and data collection, right? But if you're doing something new, you don't really, there is no current state. So you have to figure out what you need abstractly and then go as part of the design, figure out all the bits you need to figure it out. And why do I show it like this? So, you never just go do, here's what the problem is, and then here's what's going on, here are the requirements. Every single step or every phase involves a lot of iteration, back and forth, getting answers from people, documenting it, see if it works for them, and so on. And it's always a give and take. You always learn in detail. When you find something that going on in a later phase of the work, you might say, hey, we missed things, or we have to change things from some earlier phase. So that's why it's written so you can iterate not only between phases, or not only within phases, but also between them. And that's why I show it this way. Somewhere I have list of the section of the BABOK versus the way I think about the phases. And they still go in order kind of from upper left to lower right, kind of, but it's a little sloppy. So I just wanted to give you that other context. The way things are shown in the BABOK, here's stuff you could do, and it's a bunch of techniques and kind of tells a story of the order you can do them in. But I think this other view is very useful. So that's it. Thanks. Hopefully that is helpful.
Bob, I have a
And
question.
please.
Quick question there, Bob. Just want to get your insight, your thoughts for the implementation and the test part of the cycle there. I've noticed you've added implementation before testing. Is this in a concept of a pilot implementation you're thinking through here and then test?
No.
Why not test before
Hey,
implement?
you're thinking like a BA, and that means test to see whether something's gonna work, do a spike, do a prototype and all that. What I'm talking about, and what you're talking about is actually part of design.
Mhm.
So implementation, the way I'm thinking about it is when you actually build it. And that is kind of more outside the BA realm. It's in the project manager realm. It's in the implementation SME realm. So that's why it took me a long time because I worked full life cycle. I was a hardcore engineering and computer nerd, so I wrote gobs of code, and did acceptance tests and so on for huge projects. So there's so much to know about the context of what we're doing. How do I unshare this stupid thing?
Okay. I see where your thought process is coming from. Thank you for sharing that. Because as I look at it, I like the layout and I like how you've thought about it. As I'm also thinking through, because you've done a bunch of written in coding, I suppose that's where you're testing to make sure that whatever you're about to implement or within the design phase, you've tested, you've created and you've tested and then you've implemented. So now the testing in this instance would be from your within the production phase, or maybe test it with users and whatnot.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are so many kinds of testing. I've got a blog post about a zillion ways to test software, and it's not even exhaustive. So yeah, that's a whole nother there's even a hour-long presentation I gave on it with a slide deck, so I will share those links. And I need to really figure out how to unshare this so I can give this stupid thing back to.
I can take it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
By the way, the implementation and test cycle, when you're actually building stuff, is the classic way of thinking about how you iterate between phases. So that's important to know. Also, now I will shut up.
Okay. Bob, we appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, next one. Policies, budget, time, resource availability are all types of what? Are they types of risks, constraints, resources, or capabilities?
Constraints.
I'm sorry.
B, constraint.
Is and boy.
Yeah,
Constraint.
constraints.
These are constraints because they describe aspects of the current and future state that may not be changed by the solution. So constraints are, these are some of them: policy, budget, time, and resource availability. Okay, what is the best description of strategy analysis knowledge area? This literally wants the description of the knowledge area. Strategy analysis begins when a business need is identified and ends when the project is initiated. Strategy analysis consists of the collection of pre-project activities for capturing future views of the business to provide context for elicitation. Strategy analysis knowledge area begins when a business need is identified, analyzes the current state, enables the enterprise to effectively address that need by defining the future state and transition states, or strategy analysis focuses on understanding the current state, identifying objectives, and keeping the organization from reaching its goals. Identify obstacles keeping the organization from reaching its goals. Can we eliminate any?
We can. D doesn't sound right.
We're not worried about elicitation on this, right? I
No.
agree with you. That doesn't sound right. So what do we think the correct answer is?
I want to say C,
Why do we like C best?
because it analyzes the current state
Okay.
and then we'll define the future state. I don't know.
Yeah, I like C. That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's test it. This is the correct definition of the strategy analysis knowledge area. You're learning the voice of the Babok. Congratulations. Sangrita is a BA assigned to the R&D function of a cell phone manufacturing company. R&D's research and development. The developers would like to obtain funding to create a phone battery that will automatically charge itself whenever it detects a wireless connection. Sangrita has been charged with writing a business case to obtain funding for this exciting new venture. She has all the information she needs about the limitations of the current technology and the angst it causes customers who desire a longer battery life. She wants to ensure that she fully understands this opportunity. In order to understand the opportunity fully, what might be her next course of action? So, what is she doing here? Which task is this?
Future state.
She wants to fully understand the opportunity. You think it's future state? There's a lot in here about current state.
Yeah, she's got the
Yeah.
limitations of current technology and the angst it's caused customers who desire.
She wants to fully understand this, so I think she's still in current state. What do you think?
Current, yeah.
Yeah, it does sound
Okay.
like she's in current state. Yeah.
Okay. So her course of action might be Sangrita could survey customers who have submitted complaints regarding the current battery life in order to understand a viable price point for her battery. Looks like product owner stuff here. Write a business case using different scenarios in order to quantify benefits using pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely view of sales velocity. Understand the size of the market, gain competitive intelligence, and hopefully understand potential price points for the battery. Or Sangrita could conduct a focus group with representatives of the target market to understand what they would pay for the battery.
I kind of like D.
Me too.
So eliminate D probably. Yeah.
You think we should eliminate the focus group?
Yeah, it's not, I feel like it's not going to give her the like extensive information that she needs to understand the opportunity.
Okay. And we like B? Okay, let's test it. Okay, Sangrita could do this, but it wouldn't be as reliable as one of the other responses. And the actual correct answer would be understand the size of the market and gain competitive intelligence to hopefully understand the potential price points for the battery. This is a tall order, but Sangria is going to need to quantify benefits for the business case. To do this, she'll need to do a market analysis to comprehensively and realistically understand the market opportunity. So remember, in a business case, she's been charged with a business case to get the funding. She's got to be able to say, here's the problem. Here are the 5 ways we talked about doing it. And here is the price point and impact of each of those ways. Yes, Bob.
The business case is always about costs and benefits, and whether the benefits outweigh the costs and by how much.
Is anybody not familiar with business cases? Or better yet, how many of you have created or worked with business cases? Show of hands. I see 2. I'm sure that you have. Okay. Okay, more hands. Very good. Okay, so working with business cases was a very new thing to me. Whenever I first started, I was like, what do you mean they want all this information? Can't we just tell them it's going to be a great project? And they kind of laughed at me, and I was young. And I learned because I had to create business cases and I had to figure out where to get the information that would stand up to their scrutiny. It's their job to scrutinize, to be sure that you're not just making up stuff or you're telling a good story, and that you have explored several different viable options, including the one of, if we don't do anything, this is going to be the result. Always important for a business case, according to the Babok. Question 8, financial resources, patents, reputation, and brand names are all examples of which of the following elements? Are these capabilities, internal assets, business architecture, or macroeconomic factors?
Seem like assets B.
Internal assets?
Yeah.
Yes. I see heads nodding. The Babok also calls these enterprise assets, internal assets, enterprise assets. These are things that the company has, they've invested money in, but they have value.
It's also
During-
part of the current state.
That's true.
All right.
During a lecture, a professor was teaching his class the fundamentals of developing a balanced scorecard. After reviewing the 4 dimensions of the technique, he asked some questions of the class. So we're in the balanced scorecard technique. He challenged the students to answer the following questions. Which dimension of the scorecard would you focus upon to ascertain how well the enterprise is operating and if their products meet customer needs? For a balanced scorecard, would that be learning and growth, customer, business processes, or financial? These are the 2 things that it needs to meet. I have 1 vote for C. China, why do you think it's C? Anybody else? While she's typing furiously.
I was thinking the business process as well, see, because it's going to show you their process of doing that so that, you know, because it says how well the enterprise is operating.
Okay. Rejoice, your vote is B. Why do you think B?
Because we want to understand customer needs.
Okay.
Right, if their product meets customer needs. Yeah.
Okay. Let's test B. I just have a feeling.
Okay. You have a feeling B?
And it was C. I'm sorry, I'm giving y'all that one. Yeah, more of you voted for that. Business process, there's a seeming crossover between this and the customer dimension. However, this dimension is internally versus customer focus. This one is all about the customer external. This one is all about, has the internal focus. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Next question.
Can we go back? The question's a little goofy, and the reason it tripped you up is the way you're thinking about it is great. You could say that the business, because it talks about customer needs, that's really part of objectives and maybe measures in the business process, you know. So that's just one possible way of thinking about it. Again, I think the questions on the exam will be more clear cut.
I'm confident. The professor then asked the students which dimension of the balanced scorecard would contain measures pertaining to top-line revenue growth and overall profitability for the current fiscal year. Would it be business process, customer, learning and growth, or financial?
D, financial.
2 Ds, and yes, you're correct. These are all financial elements, aren't they?
Yes.
Last question. Which dimension of the balanced scorecard would contain measures pertaining to whether or not delivery of products and services met customers' expectations over the last quarter?
That's going to be B, customer.
Customer.
You're correct. So, delivery of products and services and customer expectations, all external to the company, right? It happens after it leaves us. Which of the following are outputs of the defined future state task? So output of this task, business goals and objectives, capability analysis, potential value. Business objectives, capability analysis, potential value. Business goals and objectives, future state description, potential value. Or business objectives, future state description, potential value. Can we eliminate any of those?
A, B, and C.
You think A, B, and C all should be eliminated? Why?
Yeah, because I read that part and it's D.
See?
No, if the answer is D, A, B, and C should be eliminated. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's test it. These are the outputs of the defined future state task. Very good. Okay, next. Which of the following statements best describe a common test for assessing business objectives? So, assessing business objectives is our test that that's our goal, and it's a test. So, is it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, testable? Specific, manageable, achievable, relevant, time-bounded? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bounded? Or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bounded? Yes, you're right, China. Tell me which of these words do not belong. Let's start there.
Testable, manageable,
Manageable does not belong.
yeah, it doesn't belong.
No.
Supposed to
Okay.
be measurable. Yep.
It should be measurable.
Yep.
Maybe C is the right answer.
Realistic is
Yeah,
not.
I'm assessing between realistic and relevant. I
Mhm.
think realistic
Okay.
would be correct.
Let's test C.
It's D.
No.
It's relevant. Yeah.
It's relevant. Yeah.
I agree. I very often have thought it should be realistic, but it's relevant. So this is the SMART acronym for defining measurable objectives. You may not be tested on this on the actual exam. I don't remember seeing it, but it's a really good thing to know. We see a white screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bounded. It's SMART.
Smart.
Okay. We are going to we're going to get through 15 today, and then I'm going to give you a bit of information. Which of the following types of risk tolerance would most likely need a risk mitigation strategy? So a risk mitigation strategy, can anybody tell me the purpose of that? Okay. So types of risk tolerance, would it be someone who is risk averse, someone who is neutrality, someone who's risk transferring, or someone who is risk seeking?
Risk averse.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Transferring, maybe.
Risk
Tolerance.
transferring?
Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would say risk averse because risk mitigation is to lessen the risk.
Right. But you
Okay.
could,
So if someone is risk averse, are you going to have much risk? Are you going to avoid risk, right? And if you
Yes.
avoid risk, do you need risk mitigation strategies?
Okay.
Maybe risk seeking, because if you're doing something really risky, you want to make sure that
You got mitigation strategies in place? Let's try
Right.
it. Let's see what we have. Oh, you were right. I'm going back to that one. Risk aversion is an unwillingness to accept much certainty. If we said risk seeking risk tolerance means a stakeholder is willing to accept risk or even take more, so mitigation is not usually needed. So if they say, oh, well, it's what we have, that's risk seeking. So risk averse is like, yeah, we're going to have stuff in place just in case.
Can
So,
you click on C, risk transferring ones?
This is an invented term.
Oh, sure, of course.
So
well, okay, it is and it isn't, because
Thank you.
look at risk management. there are 4 things you can do with risk. You can avoid it, which would be the mitigation or attempt to avoid it. You can transfer it, and the usual way of doing that is insurance, but also bringing in partners and things. That's a major thing you need to know. Risk reduction is about if the risk happens, then you're able to deal with the consequences better. And there's also acceptance, which means, hey, we're gonna let it rip. The other thing is risk seeking, which is not really about that kind of thing. That's going for opportunities, and it's more an active pursuing thing rather than try to deal with it or prevent it thing. So there are a tiny handful of things you should know about risk management, and I think they may be in the technique probably talks about all that. Yep. Number 38, it'll cover all.
So the 38th technique covers your management of risks. Okay, let's get one more done tonight. When analyzing the current state of an organization, so we're in analyze current state, a business analyst may perform a cultural assessment. Which of the following is not true regarding the value of a cultural assessment? Once again, on the actual test, you're not going to see the questions that say which one is not. But for our purposes, you're going to learn from it. So 3 of these are true, 1 of these are not. A cultural assessment will identify which processes and tools are sufficient enough to support a new solution. A cultural assessment will identify if a cultural changes are required to achieve goals. A cultural assessment will ascertain whether or not stakeholders view the current state as satisfactory, and a cultural assessment will ascertain whether or not the stakeholders believe change is necessary. Can we identify which ones of these are true?
B, C, and D.
Okay, so you think A is the one that should be and the correct answer to this question? Do I have another vote?
I don't know, like with culture, to me, like it pertains to like the people.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Yes.
talking about
Right.
tools.
Yeah, and this one's talking about the tools. I agree with you. Let's
Right.
test it. This is a description of an operational assessment. The statement is not true about cultural assessment. Okay, we have done 15. Out of those, we've gotten 5 answers wrong. That means we're running at about a 66%. So not great. We're not finished with this chapter yet. In fact,
Good.
we pretty much just started. I want to talk a little bit about handling this challenge because, as I've said several times, this chapter and the next 2 chapters are the hardest ones. They're the most complex, they're hardest to get your head around the concepts. I really believe that the Watermark book is beneficial for these particular 3 chapters. So if you have it, I suggest you use it. I would always recommend you read the Babok first on that task and then switch over to the Watermark book and then go back to the Babok to study the techniques, how the technique is used in that task. And then do that the same thing over and over for the other 3 tasks in this knowledge area. Now, your goal to pass this test is you need to make at least a 75 in each knowledge area. I have no doubt that each of you can do this. However, this is some things that I've seen students go through in the past. I'm going to tell you now so that as you encounter them, if you encounter them, they're not a surprise and you don't feel like you're the only one. The first thing is you're studying along and you feel like you're really getting it, and then you hit something and you cannot get your head around it. And you want to beat yourself up and you want to quit. This is normal. It's just you study too long and you just need to take a break and come back to it later. I don't expect you to get more than 60% of the concepts in this chapter while we're actually in this chapter, because some of the information that impacts this chapter, you're going to learn more about it in the next chapter. And so as we're working through chapter 7, you're going to go, oh, that's what we were talking about in chapter 6. And you're going to be able to, gather more information. And then again in chapter 8, you're going to go back and go, oh, I understand chapter 6 and chapter 7 better now. And then after we finish chapter 8, again, I'm only expecting you to get about 60% of these 3 chapters whenever we go through them, and then increase as we go along. After we get through chapter 8, we're going to start doing some combo tests. Do chapters 7 and 8 together. Do chapters 6 and 7 together, because you're going to start solidifying some of your concepts in a more global way, because they impact each other. That, well, things that are outputs of one of those tasks that you don't even know the task yet are inputs into one of these tasks. And it's like, what are we doing? It sounds kind of maddening, but honestly, if you just be patient with yourself, accept if I can get 60% on this chapter, and after you get through chapter 7, you're going to have more like 75% of chapter 6. After you get through chapter 8, you're going to have more like 85% of chapter 6. And it's going to continue to grow. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So another thing is, you're going to go through a couple of days and you're going to be spot on. It's like, I am rocking this one. I'm getting 90%. I'm doing great. And it feels good. Then you're going to hit a day where it's like, I can't get over 40. I don't know what happened. It's like part of my brain turned off or something. It's really normal. It's really common. And it's really easy at that point to feel like you should give up. It's like something happened and I can't learn anymore. Just again, give yourself some patience and grace. Realize that this is a normal thing we go through. I honestly think our brains can only absorb a certain amount of information at a certain rate. And whenever we try to exceed that, sometimes it says, nope, you're not doing it. I need a break. Life has happened. Somebody's sick. You might have a cold. You might have allergies, but you got to give yourself patience, and you got to continue to persevere. I honestly think that consistent studying on at least 5 days a week, do it an hour a day, 5 days a week minimum. And I will tell you the story again in case I haven't said it to you. I had a friend in one of my last study groups. She was pounding it. She had taken over the island in her family's kitchen. Her kids knew that they weren't allowed to touch any of her papers, even though they were colorful and they were pre-K. They weren't allowed to touch any of her papers. She had them all laid out. She pounded this test. She said at the beginning of the week of Thanksgiving, I'm going to take Thanksgiving off to spend time with my family. And, I haven't spent enough time with them. I know we're near the end of the test, but I'm going to take a week off. She came back the Monday after that. We did our next series of questions. Guys, she cried. She cried in front of us because she says, I knew this. And now I've taken a week off of working on it. And my brain said, you must not need it anymore. She had to really struggle to get back into the groove and to regain some of that knowledge. I don't want you to have to go through that. So I want to encourage you, be consistent, give yourself the privilege of studying on a regular basis, and keep going even whenever it feels like it's a little bit hard. You don't have to pound it. And especially if your brain is saying, I'm tired or I'm sick, give yourself some grace. But, do 30 minutes instead of an hour. And plan on an hour and a half the next day. Do something so that you can keep going and you can say, yep, whenever I get ready to go take that test, I'm not going to have any regrets. I'm going to know that I put 100% into this. Okay?
Okay.
What questions do you have? Okay. I counted it up yesterday or maybe last week. I've literally taught 1,000 people business analysis and through the BABOK. And I feel like I'm getting better at it, but at the same time, I feel like my students are getting better because of the techniques that we're using. When we go through and we identify which task we're on, that's a huge benefit. When we are able to eliminate some of the answers, that's a huge benefit. And so your reasoning as you walk through why this answer is better than another answer and how it applies to the actual question, you're doing really good. So I have no doubt that you're going to succeed, but we still have a ways to go. This is the beginning of the 3 hardest chapters. Okay? So you got to invest. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So invest, put it on your schedule, put it on your calendar, set aside the time, let your loved ones know this is a thing that you're going to walk through, and be a good example to them because they're watching. You know, they see what you do. They see, you know, it's worth it to them to put in this time. Maybe whenever I go to something that's important to me, I should put in that same kind of effort. Okay, we're close to the end. I'm going to be sending out the application worksheet. I'm willing to work with any of you as you work through that if you have questions. If you want to put it off for a month, it's okay with me. But I know some of you are kind of like, I'd like to start putting this stuff down. So I'm going to go ahead and send it out. We are still planning on continuing. I think there's a holiday coming up. Let me double check. I've got to look at my other calendar. That calendar doesn't have it all on there. Okay, so let me move all the way into June. June 12th, I'm going to be speaking at a conference, and if y'all want me to, I can ask one of y'all to either run this, or I can ask a substitute, or we can take that 1 week off. What is your vote?
Is that the IIBA conference week?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to be at the conference, so I won't be in class anyway.
Same here. I'll be there.
Are you going to
Can we
be
just do an
Phoenix?
in-person class there?
Yeah, there you go.
How many of y'all are going to Phoenix for BBC? Okay, 4 of us. Awesome. Oh, well, in that case, we might have an in-person class. I will see about finding a substitute for myself to run this class, and we can do it in person and virtual at the same time. I don't know. It depends. There are evening activities for some of the days, so I don't know if we really want to meet on Thursday, but we will meet
Thursday's the tail end. I'm heading to the Grand Canyon that day.
Well, okay.
That's
We're not doing it in the Great Canyon. There's no Wi-Fi there.
No, there's
Okay.
nothing.
Okay. Okay. So that week we may or may not have a class. I'll figure out what I can do to benefit everyone. Right now, the way we're going, I think by then we're going to be doing multiple chapters at once. So we'll see what we can get done. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
The week before, not a question, but the week before is my grandson's graduation. So I'll be at his graduation ceremony on Thursday.
That's exciting. Congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Life happens. I know it does, but we're going to do what we can to be as consistent as possible. Okay? Okay, I will plan on sending the email with the application form out by the end of the day tomorrow. So you have it over the weekend so you can peruse it if you wish. Again, if you don't want to, don't worry about it. And if you lose it, I can send it out again. I'm not worried about that either. All right? Okay, guys. Y'all have a wonderful week. I will see you next Thursday, and we're going to keep rocking it. I'm really proud of each of you.
You.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
See
you.
you later, guys.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.